Hey guys, so this is the third video with me working with Trojan, and I have had him for about 2.5 weeks at this stage. So the last video I did was me lassoing him. So since then we've obviously been able to have the halter and lead rope on him, and I've been able to teach him to lead, and he very happily comes in the morning, puts himself in the stable, I can halter him up and we can go out on little adventures. He's still very shy around me. I haven't had as much time to commit to him as I would like to. But now that he's got the basics of leading, I'm going to work through a little bit of body control with him. So I had a few people asking me how I teach my horses to lunge. So I'm going to show you a little bit about that. And then just getting him to move his feet and give him some tools that he can use to keep himself safe and to be able to answer some of the harder questions that I'm going to be asking him later on in his training. So I find that in any training session, if you get to a point of resistance where you have to force the horse through the issue, it is because the foundations are lacking somewhere. So I very much believe that the foundations are so important, and when you're building up to your flying changes, your leg yields, your jumping of any kind, if they don't have body control, if they can't move their hips and their forehand, if they can't shorten and lengthen, then you're going to have issues and you're going to have big holes in your training. So what we're going to do to start off with is I'm going to do a little bit of lateral movement on the ground, just with moving his hips over. Now he's very good at this because even in the round yard I was doing this at liberty. So when I was asking the front end to draw in and then I was pushing the hindquarters, he already had that idea pretty quick. But basically, same thing as I did in my Romeo videos. I'm going to come in here. When I start and I'm about to cue them for something, I don't want to rush in and have them anticipate it, because sometimes I might not actually be asking them. So here I'm just going to rub on him and just make sure he's fine with me in this area. And then same as here, I'm just going to lift this hand up and I'm just going to ask the hindquarters to move across. So there we go. Good. And then my hand comes down. So because he's so sensitive and he's very aware of me, I don't have to put very much pressure on. I didn't even put any pressure on that time. Sometimes with a domesticated horse that's a bit dull, I might just swing the rope and build up my energy a little bit if they're ignoring me. But because he's so good at listening, there he's about to anticipate me, so you can see he's starting to lean in. So I don't want him to anticipate the cue because I might just be going to brush down to his hips. I'm going to rub on him, get into position, and then here I'm just going to lift this hand up. I don't want to pull his head across. So if I'm having to pull his head across, it's because the hind end's moving too slow and I haven't taught him how to yield his head. So here, I liked that. Even though he moved off slowly, he gave me a really beautiful shift across. Good man. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the forehand, so with the goal that the hindquarters stays still and the front end moves around. So here I need one hand on the shoulder, or one hand near the shoulder if I need to put pressure on. One hand under here. And I'm just going to stay here. He's moved kind of across, more backwards, but I need him to finish soft off my hand. So he's resisting and pushing into me. So I'm going to hold. Good. That was enough of an answer. He kind of just softened to the right. Good boy, that was good. But I want a little bit more. Good. Good. And each time he softens, I'm pulling my hand back off the halter. So he's just sitting on me there. Good. And I'm watching his eye and his ear, and any soften. That was a soften. Good. Good boy, there we go. So if he sits on the pressure, I'll just click to him. Good boy. So that was a kind of answer, but I'll take those tiny little answers right now, because he'll then associate every time he moves his head away from me, he gets that release. So I wouldn't want to ignore those tiny little answers, because he's going to then be very confused about what the big answer is supposed to look like. So I'm kind of playing hot, cold, hot, cold. Good boy. So rub on him. I'm going to flex him away. And because he's moving the shoulders good, these are two questions that I'm asking him. One is that he needs to fix his head and soften away from me. And 2 is that he needs to move his shoulders. So he's moving the shoulders great, but his head, good boy, is very tight and trying to push back on me. So he should just soften his head to the right, move the shoulders across as if he's about to turn away from me. So I'm just going to wait here. And even if he moves his feet, I'm going to ignore that because this hand motions for him to move his feet by patting him on the shoulder. So I'm not actually asking him to move. Good. So there he just sat on the pressure a little bit, kind of went to sleep on it. Good, there we go. So he went to sleep again on the pressure. And so I just clicked him up and he just did a nice enough one. So these aren't great answers, but considering this is the first time he's been asked to move just the forehand, they're still very big answers for a horse with his knowledge. So here, I'm going to say move across. Ooh, that was beautiful. Good boy. So before I even put pressure on, he moved his head away. Good. Good. Well done. And make sure to reward him with a release always. Good boy. But also, good, with my voice. He's kind of doing a bit of a head tilt, which is fine. Whoa. Good, that's perfect. I'm going to give him a really big reward for that. Hop back out of his space. Good boy. And then I'm going to see if I can flex his head away. Good. And then my hand's going to come down on the shoulder. And I'm just going to ask him now to step across. Good, that was such a good soften. Good boy. Again, a fantastic answer. So I'm going to give him a bigger reward. So on the smaller answers, he gets a small reward. But when he does a really good job like that, I'm going to be like, yes, you did so good. Good. And you can see both times when I've given him that really big reward, he's had a nice lick of the lips. And so even though he's probably not fully connecting yet to what I'm asking of him, he's starting to form those associations in his brain. So I'm going to come in again. There, he's just a bit shy of me coming in. Good. I'm going to put my hand, good boy. So there, because he's anticipating, I'm just going to rub on him. And then I'm going to ask him to move across. Good man. Well done. Then he's had another nice lick of the lips. So what this sort of body control is super important on the ground because it means that if I need to move him across, I just push him across like this with my hand and he yields that forehand away from me. So many horses, you have to manhandle them because they don't have body control. So you have to drag them all the time. Let's say I'm walking through the gate. If I haven't taught them body control, then they just walk off and they pull me over. Whereas if I lead them through the gate and then I say, all right, now come around, then I can latch it up and it's all very easy. But then it also becomes very important when I go to get on their backs. If I've got that body control and I can move the hindquarters, I've got a very good safety stop. If I've got control of the forehand, I can move them across very easily and then it makes keeping them straight, etc. Really easy as well. So now I'm going to come this way. Just because he was good on the left side doesn't mean he's going to be good on the right side, two different sides of the brain, so I may have to come in from the beginning. If you come in on this side and have the same expectation you had on the other side, you can set yourself up for disappointment and then you end up telling the horse off for something that's not their fault. That was nice. If you've made it really black and white, they should. Good boy. So here I'm just going to start with moving that neck across, and there's just a moment of tension there in his body where he's just over anticipating what he's supposed to be doing. So I'm just going to rub on him and just take him back to where he needs to be. So he's just a bit worried about me being on this side, so I'm going to wait till he relaxes. Good boy, he's just starting to soften in. Good, so I came in thinking he'd be the same I came in thinking he might be a bit different on this side, but actually the issue that's presented is not so much the question I'm asking, but the fact that I'm even on this side of his body. and that's very common for wild horses. Sometimes they have a side that is a little bit harder for them. So I'm just going to wait here until he relaxes down, give him a little bit of a rub. Because the biggest thing is when I'm asking these questions, I don't want tension in their body, and I don't want them in that survival part of the brain, because they're not going to retain information, and they're also going to react to what I'm asking, not respond to what I'm asking. If they're reacting, they're in the fight, flight, freeze response, and then I get a very rushed, abrupt transition rather than a nice relaxed transition. All right. Good. I'm just going to have this hand nicely on the shoulder, and there, that's where the issue's coming from, is this, as this hand comes through. There we go, I'll just rub him there. So when he leaves, I don't mind that, I'll just correct him and hold him. Wait till he relaxes down. And ask him across. So there he's turned beautifully, so soft with his head. His front end hasn't moved across, so I'm going to keep the pressure there until he just yields that forehand across a little better. So it's not a true turn on the hindquarters because they're supposed to cross over, but it's the beginning stages. And once they've then developed those beginning stages, then I can go into asking more, but it wouldn't be fair to ask more right now. Good boy. That's a lovely soften. Good boy. So there he's softened over lovely, and the outside leg just moved across like this. So I'm basically wanting them to move here, like that. So I don't want the forward, I don't want the back. If they accidentally go back, I'll just keep very patiently waiting. And what I'm trying to do is, as I put my hand on the halter and ask them round, I'm kind of imagining I'm walking off in that direction. If I go straight, there's all that open space, and so they tend to just kind of walk off. So I come in here, I'm stepping across the front end. Beautiful, good boy. So I'm going to leave him on that today because it's a really cool answer. And now I'm just going to begin a little bit of teaching them how to lunge. So typically when you're lunging, you need to be behind the drive line. So it can range on horses, but it's usually from the wither down to the shoulder, down to the front feet. When you're behind that, you're driving them. When you're in front, you're stopping them. Now, what I want to teach him before I then actually ask him to go around the circle is I want him to be able to go out in a particular direction, and then once he's gone out, then I can sit him behind the drive line. So when we herd these horses in to put them into the stables, I always have one hand that drives like this and one hand that points. And the drive hand is move away from this hand and move in the direction of this hand. So they're generally very good. If I point over there and raise this hand up, they know to move that way anyway. And I did that in the round yard when I was working with him. When I was changing direction, I was always pointing. And that's because it's very important when you're working with horses that they have a visual cue so they understand what's about to happen. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to stand in front of him. I'm going to point. And I'm going to drive with this hand. Any movement in that direction, good boy. I'm going to release. I'm going to hold. Good boy, let him relax. So I don't need very much pressure on him at all. If I had a horse that was going to sleep because he didn't realise I was asking the question, I could send the rope around a bit quicker. So point, send, drive. Good boy, and drop and release. What I want to do is be so consistent with the question that as I point, there we go, before I've even needed to drive, he's got the idea and he's moved around. Now he's lunging himself and I'm not even in his drive line. So now I'm going to just ask him to yield the hindquarters to come in. Good boy. So here, point. Beautiful. This is the first time I've taught him to lunge. But because we have, when I worked in the round yard in the beginning, which I showed in the videos, and in the stables, good. Yield the hindquarters, a little more. Good. So now I'm going to go right. He's going to anticipate left. So point here. See, there we go. You can see him going left. Good. I'm going to reward that. He went to go left, he stopped. There, he's anticipated again. I'm going to yield the hindquarters. Good. I'm going to correct him. So he's not doing the wrong thing, he's just anticipating the wrong question. So point, pressure. I'm just going to keep the pressure there, just very quietly because I know he's listening off that. I'm going to make this rein a little shorter so you can see the pointing a bit better. Good boy. Now, had I have got bigger on him there when he had the wrong answer, he probably would have run right, but he would have panicked about it, and then I would have had a really messy transition. And then the next time I asked him, he would have been really abrupt about it. I want him really relaxed in those transitions. So here, right, pressure. He's good. You can see the confusion on his face. He's trying to anticipate what the answer is. And so I don't want to add more pressure. Point, pressure. Good boy. And then I just let him down. Give him a little moment because he's wanting to think there. So when they have that softening of the face and they're sometimes often about to go into a release, I want to give them that time because that's when they're starting to change their thought patterns in their brain. Well, okay, point. Good. So there he's kind of ignoring me so I can build up pressure a little bit. Oh, good boy. So there he just dropped the rope. Good boy. Good boy. I have to be careful when I lower the rope down. Sometimes as it touches the ground, it can frighten them. Good boy. So just to be a bit hard, I'm going to ask, we'll go this way because he's already going. Go that way. Then I'm going to yield the hind quarter. And now I'm going to say, go that way. Good. Then I'm going to yield the hind quarter. And now, good. And I'll do one more. Yield the hind quarter. Good boy. And then finish with a nice yield. Good boy. So when I'm working with my horses, and I teach this to my students as I'm starting to do more ground handling work, is there has to be a warning that you're about to do something. So often when I'm teaching riders at that lower level when they're riding, they'll be trotting in a straight line and then they'll tell the horse to turn right by pulling. And the horse is so shocked about where that pressure's come from, and there's that moment of resistance and tension in their body because they haven't got time to think about the question, and then suddenly there's this massive hand pulling them across. When I'm trotting along and I want to turn right, I'm starting to change my body language several seconds before I actually put weight in the hand. So first of all, I'm starting to turn my hips, I turn my head in the direction I'm going. This hand opens, this hand closes against the neck, and then this weight closes in the hand to say we're turning right. So when I actually add the pressure, they're like, oh, that actually makes sense because she gave me plenty of warning in advance. And then what will happen is that I'll be trotting along here, I've kept that really consistent, I'll look across over there, and the horse will have already turned right before I've even had a chance to open my rein. And it's because it's starting to associate those smaller cues with the question, so then they just answer it really easily without me having to pull them and yank on them, etc. And so when I'm working here and I'm asking them to go, I don't just start with pressure. I start with, I'm giving you a warning, I'm pointing in that direction, my body language is moving that way, so my energy lifts, my body language moves, then this hand comes out and then the pressure comes. Good boy, sorry. So then, by the time the pressure comes, they start to realise, oh, actually she did all these small things before, and they start to pick up those small things. So in the end, you just have to point, and you don't even have to lift your energy or move your hand. They've already moved off around, and that's when you get really light horses. So a lot of people just start, they go straight into the pressure. I want to set up my body language to say, hey, we're about to do something. My energy's lifted. I've given you a cue. Now when they have ignored the smaller steps, now I'll add pressure. And then I get a horse that is much lighter and much more relaxed when I ask the questions rather than just reacting off because the pressure's just appeared out of nowhere. Good boy.